Oh, there's one right there for you, Tim, if you want, yeah. Sorry to interrupt, no, just underneath.
Being Irish through and through, I've never been told they can't hear me.
Okay, here we go, here you go.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
So, just wanna, does that go away? Okay, I don't have to worry about that, okay.
Oh, I can take that off.
So, so we've maintained our charitable status. We actively participate in fundraising, initiatives, speaking engagements once a month at least. I'm speaking to Rotary clubs. I spoke to recently the Chinese Cultural Community Center. And I speak to, I go to, say, senior centers and I speak about fraud prevention. Right. Now, not all these initiatives are there to raise funds, right? Some part of our mandate is to educate, right? So if I'm going to a Rotary club, yes, I want to put an ask out there and see if I can get some money. But if I'm going to Middlesex, London Housing, seniors home, that's not where I'm going to ask for money. That's where I want to educate them to try to protect themselves from fraud. So we've had some financial difficulties. I think every charity has. I think since COVID, it's been a new reality. But despite these financial difficulties, we continue to see a steady number of tips. I'll get into that in a couple slides. We make payments to tipsters to fulfill our mission. So, we're succeeding. How do I fast forward? Sorry, there we go. Old man with a device, that's what happens.
I hear you,
So I only have a few slides on stats, and I apologize. I know you all want to see many, many slides with lots and lots of stats, but I'll go through this quickly. This is just the tips received against, and it shows how many tips we get in a year, how many of those resulted in arrests, how many cases were cleared, right? And how many charges were laid. And so in 2025, 1,415 tips. That's almost 4 a day. 4 a day for a nonprofit program that doesn't cost the taxpayer any money. Right? Here, controlled substances seized and property recovered. So this is what's being reported in. I sometimes feel a little disingenuous, or I don't know, disingenuous, like I'm taking someone else's credit. I'm standing here talking about all the property recovered, and we're not recovering the property. It's the tips are calling it in and the police doing the work, but I'll take the credit. So in 2025, there was, $86,000 worth of property recovered and $20,000 in narcotics seized. You can see, obviously we had a big spike. There was a giant case in 2022. Where it was a large seizure. Weapons and vehicles seized. Guns are a problem in every city. So vehicle seized, it was 3, weapons were 2 in 2025. So you can sort of see again, 2021 and 22 are quite busy. This is interesting. So the rewards paid versus the cash that was seized, right? Rewards paid, well, we paid $1,915. The cash seized, again, Crime Stopper's not taking the cash. It was $4,000. The rewards paid and then the rewards collected, it's about 40% of the tips are collected by the tipster. Others, for whatever reason, don't collect it. We can't follow up with them to find out why. This is a newer one here, traffic offenses. I can't really explain it because I don't know anything about it other than the fact that with the provincial offense notices, they started reporting those. And I guess if tips come in through Crime Stoppers on that, so they've had 3 PONs and the 1 traffic offense. Okay, so that's our stats. That's what we did at a high level, what we did. Here's our P&L for 2025. So, if you look at our total revenue, it was almost $19,000. Majority of that is, well, it's all fundraising and donations, right? And then our expenses came in at about $16,000. That's common, right? There are no salaries. there's no rent. I mooch off my boss for boardroom space, you know, and we're all volunteer, board members. So if you look at 2025, quickly say, oh, look, we're up $2,400. And for a nonprofit coming in over and we're in the black, that's a win. But I want to highlight that tax reimbursement for $4,152. That was on plan. That was an HST rebate that we weren't counting on. But had that not come in, we actually would have been under, right, for last year. And year to date, till April 1st, we raised about $3,000. I'll say $2,900. And our expenses so far is $4,400. So we're down about $1,500 so far this year. We're still doing more fundraising. What I'm seeing this year is a fundraising that I've had from corporations that continue to support us have had to scale back. So the companies that have given us, there was one company that gave us $3,000 last year, gave us $1,000 this year. Right? We're still grateful and for it, but it just means we got to dig deeper and widen the net. So. All right, so before I get to any questions, I wanted to highlight the P&L. I'm in front of the Police Services Board, and I think we're aligned with what we're trying to achieve and what the mission is with the Police Service Board and the police themselves, right? So, you know, I do have an ask, and that would be, I'd like to ask that there's some way that the Police Service Board could support Crime Stoppers financially in some way. Right, hard ask. We're all, budgets are stretched. I read the newspapers and, you know, I see it all. 40% of Crime Stoppers throughout Ontario do enjoy some form of financial support from their Police Service Board. I went and I emailed all my fellow chairmen to ask what they're doing, and about 40% do. So 60% don't. Right, so it's not uncommon, but it is, you know, it does happen, and it makes a huge difference. That support goes from you know, they pay for a salary, which would be quite high, obviously, as far as the mixing, to where they support with an annual donation. So I've asked that could be considered at some point, right, where we have some kind of support. We're struggling, like you saw the numbers. There is a real chance that if we can't get our finances and can't get that fundraising coming in, there's a real chance there won't be a London Middlesex Crime Stoppers. We came close to that last year up until that HST surprise. I had a meeting with our coordinators 2 years ago where I thought we were done. I didn't think we were going to have the money to pay our bills. And no one wants to fail. But outside of that, I really felt like I was letting down our community. So we're in a stretch, and we need some help. And so with that, yeah, have any questions? I can pretend to have answers.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate it. Members, look for questions. Vice Chair Branscombe.
Thanks, Lloyd. I was curious when they retrieve property and it's cost you so much to pay for the tips, and whoever gets the property to dispose of it, do you get any portion of that money at all?
No.
So, okay. It's interesting.
So I appreciate the presentation. Thank you for coming today. And would you be able to provide, your ask was open-ended, like what are other police services providing Crime Stoppers in terms of the amount of the
It
donation?
ranged from, I saw like $1,000 to $11,000 annually, and then there was a couple that actually paid for salaries for $50,000 and $60,000, right? But the most common one seemed to be, like, when I looked around, it was like $5,000 to $8,000 as a payment. I didn't see in any situation where a police service board bankrolling
Right.
a Crime Stoppers program. That's not the case. We're here to fundraise, but they were a supporter, I guess.
And so the London Middlesex Crime Stoppers been around for a while. So just give me a ballpark of what your annual budget has been over the last number of years. Like I saw the 18 and 16 and up there, with the 18 including HST response, and saw about $197 for hip cost. But so Just give me a ballpark what it takes to operate.
Yeah, so it's about $16,000 a year. And then, so I've been there as my third year, and it's fairly consistent. We've looked at ways to reduce costs. The OPP, I want to get this right, is it the OPP or the OPA? Has supported us by, they take care of the maintenance of our Crime Stoppers vehicle, which was generously donated by Ray Collins Chevrolet. Just make it a plug. So, so they take care of the maintenance costs for that, for us. So that's, that's where we get some help there. We're looking at moving to VoIP instead of hard phone lines. The phone lines that come in even to the police station here, the Crime Stopper, phone line is paid for by Crime Stoppers. That's my understanding is this is done so that it's Crime Stoppers property, Crime Stoppers information.
The last financial, through Mr. Chair,
Yes.
forgot what I was doing. The last slide you showed us there with I think it looked like a $1,500 deficit or something. Is that a current year number, or when is your fiscal year reorganization?
It ends in December. So that 14, I'm in the hole for 14, that's where I am right now.
Right now, currently. Thank you.
Member Lehman?
No, thanks. I'm just, sometimes you seize a considerable amount of cash, or I guess the services thing. What happens to that cash? Maybe that's.
I don't have an answer to
Chair to
Yeah, maybe I'll direct that to either the chief or deputy Bestie.
Yeah, okay, sorry, cheers.
No problem.
So, yeah, so anytime there's a seizure made, ultimately there's a court disposition with respect to that property. So the court will either order it disposed of, or in cases where it's a proceed of crime, that is liquid, let's say, as opposed to something like drugs, or illegal firearms. It is essentially, I don't know the division exactly, all the details, but it's essentially to the province, through the proceeds of crime. Proceeds of crime unit, it's a joint force operation with OPP. And ultimately, that's where it goes. It gets, redistributed for different programs, grants, and that sort of thing. Never mind, but yeah, Crime Stoppers doesn't see anything directly.
Oh, yeah.
So, when you pay out for tips, I believe I saw that in the P&L, that's an expense, correct?
Yeah, so one of our missions is to make sure there's revenue for tips.
Right.
Revenue, so when we do fundraising, the moment a tip is approved, we move that amount into the tip account of the bank. And it stays there for a period of 12 months. And then if it's not collected within 12 months, it's pulled back into operating.
So,
Yes, go ahead.
the more successful you are, like a business, which the more successful you are, you get more revenue. The more successful you are, your expenses go up.
A little bit, yeah.
So no wonder you're having success.
I like that analogy.
So I guess through your chair,
Yes.
I'd like to go to our staff. How important is Crime Stoppers for being a successful police services?
Deputy.
Through the chair, it's an important partnership, certainly because of the fact it helps us, it gives us a bit of reach, right? It gives us a bit of reach, gives people an opportunity or option for, as Lloyd, I think, alluded to, people who might not be willing to come forward and be a witness or provide information through another means. One of our methods for, we obviously, like witnesses we can get compelled to court, that kind of thing. We also take information through confidential sources. This is yet another means where people can remain, it's not only confidential, it's simply anonymous. We don't know who the tipster is. So, to that end, it's important. I think if you've seen the stats in the reports, quarterly reports until this year, I've been a regular thing to the board. That number has fluctuated up and down. And certainly in terms of the outcome, in terms of numbers of firearms and numbers of the amount of cash seized, they can fluctuate subject to who has the information and who is going to pick up the phone and make that call. I think the most recent stat was, firearms, there's 2 firearms. It is an important piece. It's one element of our approach to getting information about where the criminal activity is occurring and who's responsible for it and holding them accountable. I'm unable to provide right now a dollars and cents sort of analysis for you. I can certainly, look back historically and see. I think without knowing for sure, in terms of where your head might be going with this question, with respect to the ask, something certainly we could dig up for you and in a more detailed report.
Yes, Vice Chair Branscombe, I'll come back to the chief.
We got, go.
Go ahead.
He's the big chief.
You're, in this room, you're equally as important, so go ahead, Vice Chair.
This is what I make a motion, but maybe we should hear from the chief first.
Sure, okay, Chief, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I just wanted to add on from what the deputy was saying. These are very good questions and discussion. So I'll add that Crime Stoppers is extremely important to community safety and well-being in this community. We have been speaking and moving towards strengthening our relationship with the community. Crime Stoppers is the community. And I'll take this opportunity just to remind the public and the board that Crime Stoppers is protected. There's Supreme Court decisions in Canada that we are guided by, that if somebody is reporting information to Crime Stoppers, that information is protected. That information is protected not only to protect the identity of that caller or that tipster, but the information is as well. So when we get that information, oftentimes that information is not, that is looked in a lens that anything in that information that's disclosable that could identify the caller or the tipster, we will not disclose. That is extremely difficult for defense to make that application to get some of that content. So innocuous information might seem like it will not identify the caller, but from knowing the investigation, a simple example would be the car is black. That couldn't identify the caller or the tipster, but we may know that the only person that saw that color of that car could potentially be the tipster. We wouldn't disclose in that. So I just want to make sure that the board is fully aware and the public is aware that Crime Stoppers tips we treat with the utmost sensitivity to encourage the community to continue supporting and calling Crime Stoppers, because they do help us solve many crimes. So extremely vital, extremely important to policing. I want to thank Lloyd for all that he's doing because he's volunteering this. What I will say as well is, before I speak about potential support, the financial pieces, when we seize items that have value and they're used in the commission of an offense, the province gets some of that money and the federal government gets some of that money, depending on how it's prosecuted. If it's prosecuted by the province, or if it's prosecuted by the feds. Typically, drug cases are prosecuted by federal crowns, and the majority of cases are prosecuted that we see are from the provincial crowns. Firearms cases go hand in hand with drugs and money, and not all drug cases are prosecuted by the feds, and not all gun cases are prosecuted by the province. So that really determines, once the case is complete, the order is made by the judge, and that dictates where that money is going to go. Sometimes we seize large quantities of money, and the courts decide if it's going to be with the provincial government or the federal government. And then we see returns in terms of the governments use this to support policing grants. and efforts that go back into policing as a whole. So I just wanted to add some clarity and context on that. And then with respect to other police services, there's a lot of police services supporting Crime Stoppers, whether it be fundraising efforts, golf tournaments, events, galas. This is widely common across, I would say, across the country. So subject to the board's decision, I think to let you know, we're prepared to help and support any way we can with the board with respect to some initiatives or ideas to help raise money for Lloyd and the organization.
Members,
Good segue.
Vice Chair
Thank
Branscombe.
thank you. I was going to make a motion that we take the request back to the finance committee, working with the chief and the leadership team, find a way that we could give some consistent support to Crime Stoppers, because I think it's an important initiative.
Okay, so I have a motion moved, seconded by member Lehman. I saw a hand first, so I got first mover advantage. Are there any comments on the motion that's on the floor currently? Member Morgan?
Yeah, so I'm happy to support the motion. The one thing that surprises me in the discussion is that there's no mechanism for the province or the federal government to support Crime Stoppers, because when you show your charts, they provide tips lead to seizures. Federal and provincial governments get proceeds of crime. They've got programs, including cost recovery, victim compensation grants for law enforcement, that there wouldn't be some mechanism at some point to say, we invest in Crime Stoppers, we generate more tips, we get more proceeds of crime, and it kind of helps. So I'm happy to support how we can here, but I don't know if it's through one of our organizations, maybe that Councillor Stevens sits on, or others, that, we might want to raise as an advocacy position to say, as you consider, amendments to the legislation that governs proceeds of crime, we've seen value in organizations like Crime Stoppers getting maybe a small proportion of that money to allow their operations to continue and have stability over multiple years. Because, we can pretty much make a case that says you're generating some of this revenue, returning a small portion to you, it would make a ton of sense, because it's kind of a cycle then that leads to, less crime, more proceeds happening. So I think I'm happy to do that, but maybe we also want to consider an advocacy position, or talking to other police boards about an advocacy position to say, if governments change legislation over time, you give feedback. Maybe one of our feedback is consider Crime Stoppers as an organization that should get a standard grant from the proceeds of crime.
And that's
Sure. Sure.
That's a, can I add that to the motion, the advocacy piece of the mail? That would be great. Member Wallace.
Yeah, I just want to confirm that Crime Stoppers is a national program.
It is.
It is.
So each one stands on its own. We are our own registered charity here in London, Middlesex.
Okay.
We report to Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers. So that's the we're under.
Yeah.
And then they
And they
fall
have
under the Canadian Crime Stoppers.
So I'm happy to support the motions in front of us, and I wish I would have known this when I was a member of parliament. This would have been a good parliament.
From my side.
But I think there's a new, in the liberal majority, whoever's got the
next one,
next one up might want to do this for us. Anyways, I appreciate that you coming, and appreciate this month from the force on the support.
Members, any further comments on this? No, just one thing I'll add is that this has always been a matter that's come to our board, the importance of Crime Stoppers a few times. We know the struggles that you've been through as an organization, and we also know how important it is to both Deputy Bastine and Chief Trong. They've been working very closely on this, and I brought it up at several different board meetings as well. So I think having a fulsome conversation at the finance committee, seeing what's possible, what avenues are there, and then coming back to public once again to kind of present findings and have that conversation is the prudent approach. And again, we thank you for your volunteer work as a board that is volunteers in the sense that, yes, there's an honorarium, but it's primarily volunteer. So we respect the time that you're putting in, and everything that goes into the work to help our service. It's truly a community partner. So thank you very much. So just before I let you go, I'll look for any final comments before calling the question, members. Member Lehman.
Yeah, just, comment from myself as board member, encouragement for your young board. It's terrific to see that generation stepping up, because we need them to populate other boards throughout our city. So please pass that back to your teams.
Awesome. All right, last call. Seeing no further comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time again. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Let's give them a moment to here, and we'll move to number 3.1.
Yes.
All right. So I have a bit of reading here, members, so I hope that you will bear with me on the next section. It is heavy, so we'll go to 3.1 in your open agenda, the committee and liaison assignments, as well as a standing committee update for Glen Police Service Board. So the next several reports on the agenda are specifically related to board operations and governance through the Governance Advisory Committee. 3.1, Board Advisory Committee and Liaison Assignments, and an update on the board's Anti-Racism and Advisory Panel, Report 2604 PB01. We'll put on the floor and brings a few related items together for the board's consideration and information. The first is to confirm the advisory committee assignments and liaison roles following recent board appointments. Now that we are at full complement, which thankfully we are again at full complement, and since we're in public and talking about that as well, since the first meeting since, our vice chair as well was extended for another 6 months, and her role here is extremely important, and her knowledge and experience is very, very important for the board. So congratulations on that. This report confirms 2 liaison roles. The first one is the representative of the Board of Police Governance of Ontario. And for those who are not used to that term, that's because earlier this week, the province's central body supporting civilian police governance renamed itself from the Ontario Association of Police Boards. Yes, the OAPSB, yes, Police Service Boards, excuse me, was renamed to the Police Governance of Ontario. The second is a new role, so liaison capacity with the municipality on the City of London's Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. That plan brings together partners across sectors to coordinate prevention, risk intervention, and system response. Given the board's responsibilities under the CSPA, including aligning strategic priorities with the plan, this liaison will be important as this implementation continues throughout our community. The report also provides an update on the conclusion of the Anti-Racism Advisory Panel. The panel was established to support structured dialogue at a specific point in time for this board. Since then, the legislative and governance landscape has evolved, particularly under the Community Safety and Policing Act, which introduces more defined expectations for community input and diversity planning. In response, the board has been refining the governance framework and clarifying roles. The board is now focused on oversight level community input to inform strategic priorities, while the service has expanded its direct engagement on this topic. One example is the board's diversity plan, the service operationalizing this through its equity, diversity, and inclusion action plan, which was presented to the board and public in February of this year. The board's diversity plan sets expectations, while the service's EDI strategy and action plan defines goals and measures across key areas, including culture, recruitment and promotion training, and community partnerships such as advisory panels. The panel members were advised of this update via joint correspondence from both Chief Trong and myself on behalf of the board. We wanted to highlight that while this was the panel's conclusion, in fact, it resulted in us evolving ways of engagement and is not the final means by which we receive input from our community on anti-racism. The correspondence also outlined various ways the panel members can continue engaging with the board and service. Members were provided with ongoing opportunities to contribute, including direct input to the board, participation in strategic planning consultations, and invitations to forums and surveys. From the service perspective, members were also invited to apply to the Chief's Community Advisory Committee, which many people in the community are talking about. And I'm going to actually turn it over to Chief right now to speak a bit more about that panel and what that's going to offer to you from the operational side, Chief.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. So we've extended the deadline for the Chiefs Community Advisory Council for this purpose to allow members to be considered for that council. That council, there's going to be 2 councils, one from the community that are made up of adults and one from youths, which would be the Chiefs Youth Community Council, Advisory Council. And with that, that will be a direct, the members that are selected for those councils will be a direct line to myself. And it's an opportunity for us to hear from the community about issues that that are important. It's an opportunity for us to share information with the respective councils, especially when we're looking at implementing some new initiatives and new programs, changes. It's an opportunity for us to hear directly from the community and just as importantly, young people in our community. So very excited about it. It's been delayed slightly, but we'll be moving forward with it now that all the applications are in. And I was not aware how much interest it has driven in this community. So it's a good opportunity.
Chief, before we continue on, are there any questions for the chief on panels that he is creating? Awesome. Seeing none, I think we can all agree it's a complementary approach that between oversight and operations that supports clear accountability and ensures that these community perspectives continue to immediately inform both governance and of course, operations on the other side of the table. I want to personally thank each member of the AREP committee for their work and for their very valuable contributions. It's actually the committee I joined immediately after joining the board a few years back, and I found the input very meaningful, very impactful, and I definitely learned a lot. So I want to say thank you very much for what they did in their capacity as board members, and I hope that as many as possible will put their names forward to engage with the operations side through the new panels that have been established. So before you for report 3.1, there is a motion that I'm going to read out, and then I'm going to look for a mover and a seconder that confirm that a motion to confirm the board's standing advisory committee assignments as follows. The Finance Advisory Committee, which will be chaired by member Susan Stevenson, and two other members will be myself and member Mike Wallace. Just for clarification for those of you online as to why our committees have 3 members, it's important to note that we do not want to have quorum at these committees because these aren't decision-making committees. Any recommendations and reviews are brought to the board for to approve any recommendations that are being made. So just for some background there, for the Governance Advisory Committee, would be myself as the committee chair, along with the members of Vice Chair Branscombe and Member Lang. And then the third committee, the Human Resources and Compensation Advisory Committee, would be chaired by Vice Chair Branscombe, and then myself and Member Lehman as members. The second part of the motion is to confirm member Susan Stevenson as the representative to Police Governance Ontario, formerly Ontario Association of Police Service Boards. The third part of the motion is to confirm member Susan Stevenson as its representative and liaison with the City of London in the implementation of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Act. And number 4, to receive the information on the Anti-Racism and Advisory Panel, acknowledge the conclusion of its work, and note the updated processes for receiving governance level community input. So I'll look for a moved by member Wallace, seconded by Vice Chair Branscombe. I'll look for any comments before I call the question.
You told me, Mike.
Member Wallace.
Thank you for this, and just a question on the Finance Committee, or any of these committees, but Finance particularly.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going on. It would be great if we could get dates going forward. Like, I don't know how often these, like, obviously I've never been on this, so I don't know how often they meet, whether they meet more frequently up to budget season at the city, blah, blah, blah. Just because, like, I have things booked into June and July now, so it would be great to get it, and at least it's in the calendar for me, and I can cancel if we don't need it. So that, I don't know how often we meet, but that would be my request. And October 31st is my retirement date, so I'll have a lot more time.
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Yeah,
It's still several years away, unfortunately, but the duly noted, and actually there is a tentative schedule assigned for those that'll be added into your calendar once we have confirmed these. And actually, just for some clarification before I call the question on it too, is that normally these are done in the January meeting. These have been deferred based on our current alignment. We had memberships expiring. We had positions that weren't filled. So we're waiting to solidify before we move people on, and then we're redoing this report each time. So we're a bit behind, frankly, on these appointments, and have been in a bit limbo. So everything's been coming through to the board. But that's that clarification here. But that, so in future years, when Member Wallace, when they're actually coming forward, usually the schedule, the tentative schedule of all those meetings is outlined as well.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. Members, any further questions before I call the question? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to item number 3.2 in your agenda, CSPA section 31.3 council resolution on size of board, report number 2604 PB02. This report is pretty straightforward, but it's extremely important from a legislative standpoint that we're addressing it today. Under the Community Safety and Policing Act, municipalities are required to confirm the size of police services boards, whether that be 5, 7, or 9 members respectively. While council previously approved an increase in the board's membership from 5 to 7 members, that decision must now be reconfirmed under the new legislative framework, being the Community Safety and Policing Act, to maintain the current composition. If no action is taken by council to confirm the size of the board would default back to 5 members following the first meeting of the next municipal election, which is October of this year. So all the more reason that we send this recommendation to council now and request for direction from them. The recommendation does not propose a change in size, as you will see, of the board. Instead, it seeks for continuity and the current 7-member structure. A board of this size supports the scope and complexity of the board's responsibilities and allows for a broader range of perspectives and expertise in decision-making and oversight. I think both where we are as a city, where we are as a police service in our size too, 5 would be too small, and I don't think 9 personally is where we want to be. It seems like 7 is working quite well for us, and if we can keep it at full complement for a while too, that would be even better. So the requested action is to simply authorize correspondence to council, recommending that the current composition be maintained. And I'll put the following motion on the floor and look for a mover and a seconder. That the motion is to authorize the chair to sign correspondence on behalf of the board, recommended that London City Council confirm that the size of the board be maintained at 7 members, consistent with the composition permitted under the Community Safety and Policing Act of 2019 and council's prior direction under the former legislation, the PSA, to increase the size of the board from 5 to 7 members. Moved by Member Stevenson, seconded by Member Wallace. Discussion, members, on this.
That's perfect.
Right. Seeing no further comments or questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to item number 3.3 in your agenda. CSPA section 258.2, application for special funds, and the report number is 2604 PB03. Application for sponsorship for the Association of Black Law Enforcers, ABLE, gala report. The next item contains the report from the service requesting a sponsorship of the 2026 Association of Black Law Enforcers gala to be held in London this October. The cover report through the board's office outlines the means by which the board may consider funding this request, namely through its special funds under section 258 of the Community Safety and Policing Act. These funds are distinct from the board's general budget and are not derived from the tax levy, but proceeds of crime, as defined under section 258 and the board's policy that is attached in the appendix of your report. The legislation states that these funds may be used by the board for any purpose that the board considers to be in the public interest, including charitable causes. Administratively, the current process is that the amount of funds available in any given year is the total received the year prior. In this case, the board has $21,000 to use at its discretion. The proposed allocation would utilize the amount in full. And I will turn it over to Deputy McSween to speak to her report outlining the broader public interest considerations of sponsoring this gala. It's also of interest to note that the Toronto Police Service hosted the ABLE Gala in 2025, and the Toronto Police Service Board authorized use of its special fund to support this event as well. So Deputy McSween.
Thank you, through Chair. Yes, London Police is really excited to be co-hosting the Association of Black Law Enforcers Gala in October of this year on the 24th. It's a Saturday. This will be the first time that the gala is actually being taken out of the GTA area. The OPP hosted it up in Aurelia, but no municipal police service has ever hosted the gala. This is something that personally is near and dear to my heart, and it's an event that I really believe will help to build cultural capacity within our organization, but also give an opportunity for our community members to be a part of the gala, very similar to the Chiefs Gala, where there's that community connection. So as noted through the chair, we are requesting that the board support the event by purchasing 8 tables of 10, which would include members from our police service and members from our community, and obviously the board and executive command to attend the gala, and then also to sponsor 2 youth scholarships. So the ABLE Scholarship Program was established many years ago, and it's in recognition of the historical contributions of the first 2 police officers in Canada. So Rose Fortune and Peter C. Butler. So this will give an opportunity for the board and the police service to help foster relationships with our young people, and also assist them with their education as they move forward. We think that this will assist not only in community engagement, but also showcasing the city of London. It's attended by over 1,000 people from across the province, police officers from the States, and also sometimes we have international guests as well. So we're really excited to be on the international stage. So if there's any questions with the board.
Thank you, Deputy. So I do think there are some questions. One thing I just wanted to know based on the breakdown that you provided. So for the seating, the 80 seats, that'd be $14,000 of the 21. And then for the 2 youth scholarships, that amount would be it's $1,000 totaling 21. So for those who are online and may not be reviewing the report, that's the breakdown of the funds that are being discussed here currently. With that, I will go to Vice Chair Branscombe and I'll take a lesson there.
And thanks, Deputy, for the report. I'm supportive of this initiative. I think it's important as we put London on the map to host these things. I didn't know until you told us that was the first one out of the GTA. When we reviewed our fund in January, we were looking for things like this to do to support the community in various ways. I'm concerned that that's going to take all the money we have for the rest of the year. So one of the other things we did in January was wanted to bring back our financial and our fund to the finance committee to see, how much money we need each year, because this is all new. We haven't really done this before in a formal way. So as I understand it, so I would like to see that happen. I don't see that as part of the report, but I'd like to make sure that that's part of this piece that is coming back to the finance committee to review how much money we should be allocating for these types of things each year. And, this is maybe a one-off because it's a lot of money, but I think it's really important. So I'll support that, subject to also this whole package not this package, but the package of how much our grants, how much money we need from granting as a board and how it should be allocated going forward.
Absolutely. So we can absolutely do that because I do believe that the fund that we have is a lot of regularly low. Just for one point of clarification, this would be a separate fund because it'd be coming from the proceeds of crime, which wasn't taken into account in that original fund. So they're 2 different pots.
So it's not going to
not impact that amount that was previously approved by the board. This is coming from the proceeds of crime side. But no, your point is well taken. A more cohesive review for the year has to be done on all potential pressures. Yeah, absolutely.
Then I'll make the motion to support it.
Perfect. So the motion is just before we do that. No problem. Sir, you would just the motion would be to approve that monthly service board approve a request for a board contribution of 21,000 to sponsor the Association of Black Law Enforcers ABLE Gala taking place on October 24th, 2026 at RBC Place, London. And 2, that the monthly service board approve the use of designated special funds under section 258 of the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019 in the amount of 21,000 to fulfill this request in accordance with board policy 106-LPSB special funds account on the basis that the expenditure is in the public interest. So moved by Vice Chair Branscombe, seconded by Member Wallace. Before I call the question, yes, Member Wallace.
Yeah, so in your intro, you answered some of my questions, so I appreciate that. You can send me my notes or will make a difference, how these things are reported before, but on the, since you put me on finance, which you might regret. On the special funds account,
Yes.
right? Based on what you've said today.
Yes.
You're using, is it empty now, or is it got 21,000 in it currently?
Yeah, so
No, I'll turn over to the CGO because she has been liaising with the operations side as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, so this is something that relatively recently came to my attention, section 258 of the Community Safety Policing Act, and that these funds exist. I did a lot of work with the CAO, and we looked into sort of what other boards were doing for funding events like these, and that amount is currently what we had from last year. So that's the only way really to ensure that you have an accurate amount.
Right, yes.
That it's retroactive.
Yeah.
So yes, we do currently have 21,000. It doesn't include what's been accumulated thus far for
Currently.
2026. Yeah, but that'll be for.
Okay, second question based on your, it's from, this fund is not from the tax base, but from proceeds of crime.
Correct.
So can somebody, we just talked about proceeds of crime previously, and it goes to the feds, the province. Where does this proceeds of crime come from?
Yeah, so this is actually good too, because, and maybe I'll turn it back over to our CGO, because they're in this policy, there's certain items of proceeds of crime that the board has discretion over, and then there's other items of proceeds of crime that we do not. So maybe I'll turn it back to our chief governance officer just to run through that, and then to the service if they want to add anything from there.
Through the chair. So I'll just not have to bore you all, but I'll read out some of the legislation under section 258 because it does provide some explanation for that. So it states this section applies to personal property of all kinds except firearms and money that comes into the possession of a police service under either of the following circumstances. Number one, the property was stolen from its owner or was found abandoned in a public place and the chief of police is unable to determine who owns it. And the second one is the property was seized by a member of the police service in the lawful execution of his or her duties. All legal proceedings in respect of the property have been completed. There is no court order for its disposition, and there is no legal requirement apart from this section that it be retained or disposed of. Then it goes on to say the chief of police of a police service maintained by a police service board may cause the property to be sold, and the police service board may use the proceeds for any purpose that it considers in the public interest, including a charitable donation.
So I'm going to use a stupid example. If there's a bike that's stolen, the bike sits here for 12 months, nobody claims it, you got to sell it. Those are proceeds of crime.
Stupid example, no, that's like, yes.
So now I know where that money's coming from,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so I'm looking forward to my days at finance to find out more about how things operate here, but I just wanted to understand what that, you said that, I thought we just said what. Okay, thank you very much.
This is definitely to confirm that
Gotcha.
point, and I know the mayor is looking at me intently as well. This is just not coming off the tax base.
Okay.
Not coming from that budget. It is an entirely different fund, so. Further questions or comments on this? Before I call the question.
I want to see them.
Chief, is there any,
VIP.
Chief, is there anything you wanted to add on this before I call the question?
The only thing I'll add, Chair, and through you, echo the comments of Deputy McSween. I think the board for their support on this. It's not only community, it's young people, and it's our members that want to support. So thank you.
All right. With that said, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. Read us that out there. Perfect. All right, we'll move on to item number 3.4 in your agenda package, which is AI body worn camera policies for, excuse me, let me break that up. AI and body worn camera policies for approval. So the report presents two board organizational policies for your consideration. The artificial intelligence technology use policy and the body worn cameras policy. These are established under the board's authority to set governance expectations for adequate and effective policing under the Community Safety and Policing Act, the CSPA. Their purpose is not to direct operations, but to set clear expectations for risk management, accountability, transparency, and the maintenance of public trust. AI technologies are becoming increasingly embedded in policing. While they offer opportunities for efficiency, they also introduce risk related to privacy, bias, and public confidence. There's currently no standardized provincial framework for AI in policing, which makes board level direction very important. The AI policy introduces a risk-based framework for assessing and approving technologies. The body-worn cameras policy provides more specific expectations, giving it as a high impact and highly visible technology that falls within the broader AI framework. That is why these policies are being brought forward together today. And in turn, also outside of our complete governance review that is almost at its completion. A key element is the requirement of an annual AI technology compliance and risk report to the board. This will provide a consolidated view of technology use, risk classification, and oversight measures, and aligns with guidance from the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario on auditing and reporting, which the board is bound by. There are limited boards in Ontario that currently have board level policies governing the use of AI. But this policy was drafted based on concepts for risk assessment as defined in AI policies for York, Peel, and the Toronto Police Service boards. The intent of these policies is not to dictate the day-to-day use of these technologies, but rather to set proactive expectations for the adoption of emerging technologies in policing. AI is dynamic, and as such, these policies are likely to evolve in response to legislative and industry standards. What you have before you provides a solid foundation for ensuring proper oversight and a beginning for our police service board. The recommendations also include direction to the chief to implement these policies and to bring forward a presentation at the next meeting to support immediate awareness ahead of the first annual AI technology compliance and risk report, which would come forward in 2027. So before you have the proposed motion in front of you, but before we discuss that, I'll look to members for comments on the policies, and then also go to our CGO for any insight that she also wants to provide, having led this on the staff side. Vice Chair Branscombe, followed by Member Wallace.
So I'm really happy to see this. I was kind of concerned when we spend all that money on AI technology without a policy, so I'm really glad we got the policy expedited, and it's a good one. I do have a couple of thoughts about page, I guess under I'm happy with the body worn camera policy. I don't have any edits for that one. For the other overall artificial intelligence technology use, under 7.4 pre-deployment assessment board approval, I have a question and then perhaps a small change. All technologies classified as high risk or moderate risk shall not be deployed until approved by the board. I guess to the chief or whoever could answer it, if there was an occasion where we needed something done in an emergency situation, the board only meets every month, and that might not be enough time. So my thought was that the board, or in extraordinary circumstances, their delegated authority. We do delegate the chair on occasion to act on our behalf. That's my concern there. If something came up that we needed some technology that had been pre-approved, that's moderate. It's not the extreme risk because that's out of a different category, but it's high risk or moderate risk. So I want thoughts about that and if that amendment would be appropriate.
So we direct that towards the chief.
The chief.
The chair, and through you, I think it's a great comment, Vice Chair, and I think that would help and support operations if we were in that situation and be able to contact the chair and get approval from the chair.
Okay, so I'd like to move that amendment.
Sure.
Okay. And there's a couple other things. The report to the board within 18 months. Sorry, this is number 8.2. I think that's too long. But I also don't want to tie your hands. I know this is going to take a little bit of time. This is all on all the how it's been used in practice, performance against expected outcomes, privacy, legal, ethical. So I'd like to
see.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that we at the David Low, we're talking about a report every. She shall ensure that technologies, number 2, classified as high risk are formally reviewed at least every 2 years thereafter, moderate risk at least every 5 years thereafter. In my little pea brain, I'm not technological, but this stuff is operating at rapid speed. And I think we need to look at this more often. I don't know exactly what we're looking at. That's my problem. So the point for me is though that AI technology is like, it's every 6 months there's something happening, right? So I think that's too long. I'd like it reviewed every 2 years for the high risk and maybe every 2 years for the hard risk. I'm not sure we wouldn't do it every year though, ultimately. So that's a question. And then I'd like.
How about we address these one-on-one? So
Okay.
let's start there. Then I'll look to the chief on the timing.
And one more.
Speaking on
Yeah.
8.2, chief, right now, it's the chief shall ensure that the AI technologies classified as high risk are formally reviewed at least every 2 years thereafter, and the moderate risk AI technologies at least every 5 years thereafter, and confirm that they remain necessary, effective, and appropriate as classified. And that the board, and then that's above that the report to the board within 18 months of approval, which seems long. So the question to you through me is, if we decrease the report to the board within the first year, is that what you're?
I'd be happy
Yeah.
with that.
And whether we move to the high risk formally reviewed at least every 2 years, and then the moderate risk be reviewed every 2 years instead of 2 and 5.
Yeah.
Excuse me, pardon me, 1 and 2. My apologies. Yeah.
Yeah, Chair, and thank you, and through you, great comments. I don't see an issue with the policy as written, namely because the policy is quite robust and it will drive our policies within, our operational policies within, with appropriate AI governance committees that we need to engage, not only internally but externally. So I think it's appropriate 2 years and 5 years. But I'm in the board's hands, so no issues if you decide to change it.
So I need to understand why you don't think this is urgent for us. What are you going to be doing at your level that's going to make this 2 and 5 years okay for us? That's the question, really.
And Chair, through you, so AI continues to evolve exponentially, as you pointed out. This policy for us to operationalize it, Vice Chair, what we are going to do from our side of the house is put together a governance policy from an operational perspective for us outside of the board, so operations. My intention is to not only include the appropriate leadership on our side, but also external partners, so experts in the AI field. So we want to move quickly, but we want to move properly. And it's going to take some time for us. And I think what kind of give you some reassurance versus 2 years, 1 year, we're going to have a robust governance committee, right? So, and quite honestly, if we come back every year, I know it's like once a year, but we have a lot of reporting to do. So it just adds quite a bit, but it won't change what we're going to do internally. If it's the will of the board to go to every year, that's all it is. It's just it slows things down for us. Just that's it.
So.
Yes.
So that you're saying that the group you have doing this is going to be reviewing it all the time. Like, so operationally, you're going to be on top of all this.
Yeah, I absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my concern because it seemed like 2 and 5 years seemed like too long. I still think it's a bit long. And what's the difference between high risk and moderate risk in terms of why one would be 2 years? They seem like they're pretty similar. One's a higher risk, but the mechanics of it would be the same, I guess. For you, Chair.
Yes, chief.
Well, I think that question would be for the board. Are you asking me?
No,
Well-
because the definition is here, but yeah, what,
What would you, I guess the question is what you would identify as a moderate risk,
it's
versus,
in here.
yeah, versus high risk, but even, maybe we'll ask something operational side, what we would see, and then I'll go to Stephanie from that side as well.
Yeah, I think, Chair and through
Yeah.
you, so, high risk would be some technology that is would for us lean towards the shock of the community. That's one thing to look at. Facial recognition is one that I would consider high risk. ALPR, the license plate readers that we use now, that everybody is using, would not be high risk. Anything that we would consider that, you know, it would cause concern from the public.
It's good practical comparison using it.
So that's my concern, that we don't know what things are going to be becoming, that are going to be considered high risk or moderate risk. What, we know what we're using now, what's coming soon. But I mean, 6 months from now, we could have a whole bunch of new stuff. So I think for now, I'd like to leave my motion 1 year and 2 years, and then we can also upgrade this policy if we find that it's overkill. But I don't know that yet. I'm not that comfortable right now with that, so.
And the 18
I'd
months.
like
you
it
mentioned,
a year.
A year, 12 months then?
Yeah.
It's just confirmed that.
And those are my only changes. I had just a comment. When there's we have our in-camera confidential reports from the chief. So I would assume that if something came up that was extraordinary, that you would bring it to the board if it was out of the reporting. So I'm assuming that would happen, that we'd get a verbal from you, just like a flag or something like that. And I think that's everything for me, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I have member Wallace and then member Stevenson.
Let me go in the opposite direction a little bit.
But
In the actual recommendation, it says under 3, within 6 month timeframe for directing the chief to do something within the 6 months.
Yes,
That-
we direct the chief to implement these policies and
That-
establish or update any
Yeah.
related procedures,
Yeah.
directing
Yeah.
report instructions and training consistent with the board's expectations. within
Is
6
that
months.
too short a time frame?
Chair, and through you, I think it is, because I need to establish a governance committee. And that's the recommendations from across the industry. We need to establish a governance AI committee from an operational perspective. A lot of police services create their own internally. My intention is to pull in outside expertise to help inform me.
Would 1 year be more doable over 6 months?
Chair, and through you.
Yes.
So if I had the 1 year window, I don't think my intention was to try and get it up
Yeah,
as quickly as
okay.
possible, but it would alleviate some pressure if that was possible. But my intention and understanding the board's will would do everything I can to bring it forward quicker if we can establish the governance committee.
Okay, and my next question is mostly not for them, but for you, I guess. So this is the first time I've seen like a policy document, first time.
Yeah.
What I thought was missing from it, from my perspective, and maybe don't understand my role here, but I would have preferred to also see a paragraph or two from the chief on what this means, that is not, because you're asking them to implement a policy that the board is putting forward. I'd like to know from the chief if there's any, what's positive, what might be cautious, some heads up. And I had no idea when I read it. I read it a few times. I couldn't see it. It does say the 2 policies under construction reinforce the Privacy Commission piece. And there was another 2 policies reviewed by the service to ensure that there's no unintended implications that could negatively affect operations. And that is my personal priority, is what does this do to operations? But I'm assuming we wrote that. I don't see anything.
So I have an answer for that, but the chief is just would like to speak. So go ahead, chief.
Chair, so Member Wallace, so I worked with Stephanie on this, so I'm actually okay
Okay.
with this. These were discussed back and forth. We had a review of the policy and the body worn camera. This isn't a surprise.
Okay, so
And maybe I can give a.
yeah,
further
and then I'll
direction.
finish that off.
Absolutely. And honestly, too, just on the policy side of it, we take the chief and command's feedback into account. However, I do believe from a governance perspective, it'd be inappropriate to put in our policy any feedback formally from the chief, because the chief, we put a policy in place for him then to go and operationalize it and put his policies in place. So the direction feedback coming back formally would be against the governance structure. That is the role of the board.
Well, that's your opinion, and, I,
There's also CSPA.
it doesn't have to be in the report.
Yeah.
But an appendix,
I-
something, like, it saves me from
Sure.
doing this in public, that, I want to provide, as a board member, the best quality policing service we can in terms of public safety, and most of it is how I don't do it, they do it, how is it operational, and so on and so forth. So I'm not making any apologies for that. I want to know how this affects operation, and I'd like to hear it from that side of the table when we're doing changes to policy. So that's my opinion. So so on the recommendation, I'm not interested in, you need to break it up if you're going, on her. I'm not going to support, member Branscome's changes, and I'd like to move a change in number 3 from 6 months to 1 year time frame.
Can absolutely do that. We'll break that up. For the clarification to the board and the chair serves at the will of the board and the direction of the board. We are governed by the CSPA and how we structure our reports and where we put them in. And also to your point, Member Wallace, about getting the feedback from the service. That's what this meeting is for. And that's to be done in public verbally from the chief and from the command on our policies. So in terms of, I have no problem with the feedback being provided. That's a great thing, but it's not something practice that unless the board asks for it formally in a motion, that we've been moving forward with to include an appendix into the report with the chief's analysis of our policy. Those questions can be asked here in public, and that is your right to ask any questions that you see fit. So what I'll do is I have member Stevenson at the comments, and then we'll start pulling this apart, and I'll then look to other members as well. So member Stevenson, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on Member Branscome's concerns. I kind of agree, like, I don't really know much about the time frame, and there is a lot of concern in the public and regarding governance around AI. So I wondered maybe a compromise of whatever we come up with in terms of the report to the board within X number of months for approval.
Mhm.
At that time, we confirm the reporting frequency.
That's okay.
Sure.
For the high risk and the moderate risk, rather than try to guess now, should it be longer or shorter? We do that at that time.
Perfect. So if I'm hearing you, would that be then the report to the board in 8.2C or the?
Yes.
Okay. So
Well, in 8.2C, we talked about 18 months or 12
Yeah.
months, whatever that is.
Yeah.
At that time, we
we
confirm
confirm
the
the
reporting
two
into.
And is that a friendly?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
that.
so would you want that in the 12 months, member Stevenson, on 8.2C?
I would be interested in hearing from the chief on that in terms of the 12 or the 18 months.
Sure, I think he did confirm 12 would be good, but I'll go back to him on 8.2C on that. It was that you would, chief, 8.2C report to the board within its 18 currently written of approval on how the AI has been used in practice, its performance against expected outcomes, any privacy, legal, ethical, or operational issues encountered, any significant concerns raised by members of the service, members of the public, or community stakeholders, and any recommended changes, additional safeguards, or discontinuation.
A bit confused, Chair. So Chair, through you, so I'm okay with that 18 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're being asked if it's 12, if a year would be, you would be.
We're gonna drop that to a year.
Would that be reasonable, is the question being asked from member Stevenson in your mind?
We can get that done.
And just through you for
Yeah.
further clarification, is that 12 months from the date of whatever we choose around this 6 to 12? Or is that 12 months from now?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand.
Well, in 3, we're talking about having,
Mike was talking.
yes.
Yes.
Member Wallace was talking about in terms of it says 6 months, he's recommending it go to 12. And I'm just curious on this report to the board, is it as of now or as of once those policies are in place?
Go ahead, I'll turn it over to CGO there.
Through you, Chair. So I think what 8.2 is referring to is for each higher moderate risk technology approved by the board. So that would mean once there is one that comes forward, there would need to be a report back on all these things, on how it's been used, the performance against expected outcomes. So this would only be in the event that there were to be a high or moderate risk technology approved moving forward. The annual technology, AI technology compliance and risk report would be the report on all of the AI technology that's used, including body worn cameras. And that would be on an annual basis, and that's part of the recommendation. But this, starting in 2027, in order to do it for 2026. The recommendation for presentation by the service in the interim is to sort of bridge that gap. And then this specific 8.2 is just with respect to specific technologies that would get approved. And I think it would probably, I could have written this in the report, and I'll provide a little bit of context on what goes into these policies. This policy really got bumped to the top of the priority list by the board because, AI technology is coming at us like a freight train, right? And I've been in this industry for a long time, and it's getting exponentially more and more integrated into policing. And despite that, there aren't that many boards across Canada that have a policy in place. However, this board felt it was really important, and I absolutely agree, to have something from an oversight perspective. So what we did is, pulled all the policies available across Canada with a particular focus on the policies that already exist in Ontario. So that would be the Peel, the York, and the Toronto. So it's important to note that all of the sort of numbers in here come from somewhere. So this policy is essentially an amalgamation of the existing policies, and they really all pull from each other. All the definitions of risk, that's pretty consistent across the board from Toronto, York, Peel, definitions within the policy itself. And there is a lot of back and forth between the service because, of course, it would be, not great governance to implement a policy without the consideration of the operational impact that it would have. And it's been reviewed by legal counsel. And I just want to be clear that these numbers for timelines, absolutely, it's up to the board to determine, what's best for this municipality. But where they come from would be just from an environmental scan of other boards that have these in place.
So just for clarity.
Yeah.
So under 8.2, at this point, we're saying there aren't any high or moderate risk AI technologies, and this is in the event that there were to be some. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I think, that 6 month in the recommendation was just to give some sort of a time frame. And what that means is six months to implement this policy. And this policy includes an annual report starting next year, right? So that it's not that it would be expected to have an immediate annual report within 6 months. It's just to be able to take this policy and implement the expectations from the board and come up with a plan to execute them.
Okay.
But that timeline is absolutely, it's up to the board.
So I'll just give my comments then as I understand it now. I still like the idea of whenever this happens, whenever this 8.2C is enacted, and at that approval time, that the ongoing dates be confirmed at that time, because we'll have a better awareness, or the board will understand better what they're dealing with at that time. So I still like that recommendation that I made there. And then
Clause 2 specifically of
We can just
8.2,
take the
correct?
dates out. We can still leave the paragraph. Says the chief shall ensure AI technology classifies high risk or formally reviewed and moderate risk technology are formally reviewed, timeline to be determined or something.
Yeah, timeline to be determined upon report to the board referenced in 8.2C.
yeah, however you want to do it. I thought in C, like it says, report to the board within 18 months of approval on X, Y, Z, and it could be like a comfort, a recommended timeline at that time, once we all understand better what that is.
Yep.
And then in terms of the 6 months versus 12 months, just because this is so important and high profile, and because we don't really know what we're dealing with, or, how what the impacts are of this, I still lean more towards the 6 months, knowing that if the chief came back and said 6 is too tight, I need 8, that we would approve it at that time. So I'll see what the rest of the committee or the board wants, but I'm inclined to keep it on the shorter time frame to keep that pressure on, and then obviously be flexible if it's too much.
Thank you, Member Stevens. Member Lehman.
Yeah, at that point, I'm fine with 12 months. I want to give the chief enough time to get properly done. It's pretty complex. On 8.2.1, it says for each high or moderate risk AI technologies approved by the board. Does that infer that imply that, all higher market risk AI technologies adopted by the services will have to go through the board?
Stephanie?
Yeah.
Through your chair,
Yes.
yes, it does.
Okay, so I think, when we were presented with those, here's a new, operational thing.
Is it
Yeah, we'll have whatever time frame it is, but if it's, viewed as perhaps maybe a bit more risky or a bit more controversial, we're not, our hands aren't tied, like we can, let's try it out for a year and then get back to us in a year or whatever it is. Is that correct, Chair? Is that how you see that?
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Yes, and to our CGO, would that be how you see it as well? Yes, okay.
Yeah, so in my mind, there's protection there. Like, it's not like the chief is going to be implementing all these AI ways of doing things. And then 5 years from now, we get a report that, oh, you've been doing that. Okay, so,
And from the governance oversight of, especially from the governance side of it, we could always, even if that wasn't, the board at any time could request the chief to speak on a matter, right, that is of the public interest, and to provide a necessary report. So, yes, but yes, there is that.
Okay.
Yes, I would interpret it the same way as you, Member.
yeah, so my comment is this, AI is rapidly evolving, as we all acknowledge, but there's pros and cons. I think AI is going to dramatically assist public safety, but also in privacy and other concerns. I think there's definitely concerns which I share. I don't want to impede our movement to embrace new technology. However, I want adequate protection. I think the way this is set up gives us that protection. And I don't want to tie up. That's why I'm fine with a year for the chief to come through an operational procedure, just from his comments. I appreciate the complexity of it, which we're all learning. Trust me, I think in 3 years, everyone will be reviewing this again. That's just the way it is.
1 year.
But I'm glad we're doing it. I'm glad we're at least, so we're going, we're down to proactive. I'm glad we're being proactive. Let's figure it out from a governance point of view, as the chief is figuring out from an operational.
Yes.
Yeah, through your chair. And I think it's also important to highlight that, the board's responsibility is to set these guardrails around ethics and privacy and really establish formal policy that, the service is required to follow. But that doesn't negate the fact that there's already been so much of that done when they are assessing their new technology, right? Like any new technology used by the service, and, I read through multiple documents with community consultations and stakeholder consultations and privacy impact and all of that. So a lot of this policy is important to have in place for future use of AI and the direction things are going in. But a lot of the, parameters that are defined in here are already things that the service is adhering to, because of course they would need to ensure that all AI technology meets, legislative and ethical considerations.
Members, further comments or questions? Okay, so to recap then on LPS 4RT 002, the artificial intelligence technology use policy, the adjustments that are agreed to before going to a motion for approval are in 7.41, that a line is going to be added in to delegate authority to the chair of the board for all AI technologies classified as high risk or moderate risk, so not be deployed until approved by the board, or delegate authority to the chair in between meetings. That was the one change. And then to go to 8.2 specifically, where the only two changes would be for the report for the board within 12 months instead of 18, and that we're going to remove the every 2 years and every 5 years for the time being, and review it upon the report being issued in 12 months to the board. Am I missing any other changes in the policy?
Oh, in the policy.
In the policy, before we go to, because we're then gonna have to talk about the motion, so, yeah.
For me, only that there should be something in C that says set timelines for the reports in 2, otherwise it might get missed, right?
Sure, okay, so just the clarification that the timelines will be set in for clause 2 when the report in a 1C is submitted. Got that. Okay. All right, just gonna look for any other So I think we have it captured there. So
She'll move the amendment.
I'm actually gonna put the motion to
Okay.
the amendments, okay? We're going to, for the motion will be to approve the board organizational policy LPS 4RT002 artificial intelligence technology use policy as amended. Okay. 2, approve the board organizational policy LPS 4RT003 body worn cameras. 3, direct the chief to implement these policies and establish or update any related procedures, directives, reporting, structure, and training consistent with the board expectations within a 6-month timeframe. However, that's now been looked to move on.
No, I'll move it to 12 months.
12
And then
months?
you're gonna vote on it and decide. whether-
Yes, perfect. So maybe I'll stop there. 12 months. Is there a seconder to move it to 12 months? Seconded by member Lehman. Maybe I'll call the question on the amendment of that particular part of the motion. All those in favor? All those opposed? If I'm not mistaken.
It
loses-
fails
it
on
fails
a
on a tie. So it will stay at 6 months. 4, receive on an annual basis commencing in 2027, an AI technology compliance and risk report for the previous calendar year in accordance with the approved AI technology use and body worn camera policies. And 5, receive a presentation from the London Police Service, the service at the May 2026 open board meeting on artificial intelligence technologies, including body worn cameras, to support immediate board awareness and oversight, and that this presentation includes information on the service's current use of AI technologies, risk assessment approach, and safeguards in place to ensure policy compliance and lawful, ethical, and accountable use. Okay, so as that 5-point motions on the floor, I look for any comments on the motion as a whole. Vice Chair Branscombe.
I'm just really happy that we've done this, and with the term you used, proactive. When this first came out, when we were approving the cameras, I was actually pretty alarmed that we didn't have a current policy. We had probably some old policy. This is really important, so I'm so glad we're doing it.
Member Stevenson,
I just want to say thanks for all the work put into this.
Member Wallace.
This is number 5, just so I understand. So at the next board meeting, we're getting a report from the police service on artificial intelligence technologies that are available today. Like, what is that presentation about?
So it would be, as it's written, artificial intelligence technology, including body worn cameras to support the immediate board awareness and oversight. So that would be the technologies that, how I see it, is both that are implemented currently, which we've previously had body worn camera presentation from Inspector Lipsky and civilian professional Chris Esteban. I get that right? Okay, okay, good, awesome. So they presented several months ago on the implementation, and from there, then it would also be, yes, any other things that the service would be looking towards through the multi-year budget that we had committed, or that the service has its eye on. But the primary scope of it, Member Wallace, would be what we currently are, the tools we're currently implementing now and the board has approved through the multi-year budget.
Okay. I just find it interesting that we're having a report on it from them after we put the policy together. Maybe we should have been the other way around. Anyways, just my comment.
Okay, any further comments? Seeing none, so the motion as presented and Mel, we have mover and seconder recorded as well. No, so now that moved by Vice Chair Branscombe, seconded by Member Stevenson as presented. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4 in your agenda, the financial services update to the March finance report on reserve fund. That's report 2604 FF02. And for way of reminder, it's an updated report that was requested by the board at our last meeting to the March finance update, specifically on the reserve fund. And the purpose of this update is to ensure accuracy and alignment with the board's requested financial reporting for the reserve fund and the targets that we had set previously as the board. I'll turn it over to our CAO for further clarification on that.
Thank you, Chair. So coming out of the last meeting we did in March, the board had asked for us to review the list of committed projects to align with the City of London. I did have in that conversation with them following the last board meeting. And what you have now is that because the projects are committed and approved in 2025, those numbers have now been reinstated in the year as it was approved, which is the $6.8 million. So now the balances fall in line with our targets that we established as a board. So again, this is also in line with the City of London. So this number now falls in line within the established minimum and maximum target. So again, as the chair already said, it's just a revision of just that aspect of the board report that was presented in March.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Yes, Member Morgan.
I have to go on a call with Minister Flack and other mayors. So
Okay.
I want to excuse myself from the meeting.
All right.
Good luck with the rest.
Thank you. Duly noted for the minutes that you departed at 3:02. Members, any further questions?
We've got 2604 FF01. Or what's happening? Can I have some, I know, the procurement policy amendments.
That was pulled from the agenda.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Absolutely. Yes, so, any further questions on, yes, Member Lehman.
We're speaking
On,
finance report regard, and of which police reserve fund is.
correct, yes,
Okay.
that's the one that would update from the March one where the reserve fund was presented, yeah.
What's that contribution of 5.6 million? What's that? Where do we stand with police reserve fund balance?
CEO.
Sorry, Tradition, what's the question?
Can you
With
specifically?
the approved the contribution of $5.7 million to the police reserve fund, what balance will that reserve fund be after that contribution?
So on page 87 and 88 of the report, the only change we made to this one was the list of committed projects that we had in 2025 that's going to be spent in 2026 inflated the balance at the end of 2025 because it wasn't spent in 2025. So what the board has asked us to do is to go back and because of the inflation, it took the numbers outside of the targets that the board established with the board policy. So now the limits, based on your question, falls within that policy. So it brings, so basically what we're saying is that again in 2026 or 2025, that 6.8 is now reflective of the policy that we have established with the board established previously.
14,169.
My question is, we're looking to approve a contribution of $5.7 million to the police reserve fund. What will the balance of the police reserve fund be after that contribution?
As at the end of 2025, it will be $6.8 million.
6.6 million.
Yeah.
6.8.
Yeah, $6,816,424 to be exact.
Okay, so I believe our policy is 3 to 6 million.
Yeah, 2 to 4%.
So it falls within that or whatever. It falls.
6%.
What's that?
Percentage.
Correct.
Correct, yes, 3 to 6%.
Yeah, so it falls within that range?
Yep.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, no, definitely within the, and that was with the update to our report. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Awesome, awesome. There's no, well, actually, I'm going to get a motion to receive the report because it was requested by the board. So if I could have someone move the receipt of the amended report, moved by a member Stevenson, seconded by Vice Chair Branscombe. Further discussion, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 5 in your agenda, verbal updates. For myself first, I just want to remind everyone about our community consultation forum that's actually happening this evening from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at North London Optimist, 1345 Cheapside Street. And this is for the strategic plan, the revised strategic plan that we're putting in place. So I also wanted to thank Vice Chair Branscombe for attending our session on Tuesday earlier this week, which was a daytime session as well, engaged, which community members were engaged in with our consultant that's leading an arm's length consultation as well, which I think is very, very important. I also wanted just to mention that the chief and I addressed the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, their board of directors on Monday at Ivy Spencer Leadership. They were in town and we're very pleased to have them come to London for their 2-day conference. And she left early for operational reasons last meeting, but Deputy McSween, I did want to highlight while you were here in the room just to say congratulations. She was recognized as the Woman of the Year the Culture and Essence Awards this year, and I know how much she loves that. I think it's very, very important to note just the incredible work that Deputy McSween has done in such a short period of time in our community, and as a deputy chief here in London. And she's not only doing great things here locally, but she's also really a trailblazer from coast to coast to coast. And just actually having a conference speaking in Montreal, and has a few other engagements coming up as well. So she's highly sought after for her expertise, and we're very pleased to have her here in London. So I just wanted to formally congratulate you while you were in the room, and thank you for how you continue to represent our service. So thank you very much, Deputy. With that, I will turn it over to our Chief Governance Officer for her update.
Good through you. Both of my updates have sort of been mentioned throughout this meeting. The first one was that the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards is now the Police Governance Ontario. I'm just going to read a quick excerpt from their release about it. This evolution reflects the growing importance of civilian police governance and the organization's role in supporting effective, accountable, and transparent oversight of policing across the province. So that is, it's really highlighting the importance of police governance. And I know the executive director there, Lisa Darling, she's done a lot of work to really professionalize and modernize the systems in place. And we have now submitted the proposal to the CAPG to host the annual conference for 2027. And also my update was for tonight for the community forum. And I know a few board members will be in attendance, and I'll be there as well. So hopefully we get to speak to some people.
Thank you. Last update, Chief Trump.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, a couple updates to the board. Thank you again for attending the OACP Board of Directors meeting with me. You addressed the Board of Directors, a number of chiefs and leadership across the province. So thanks for taking the time out to do that. This week I was at Queen's Park speaking to the Standing Committee on Justice Policy with respect to Bill 75. That bill is a large omnibus public safety bill that has been put forth. It's past second reading, and it deals with a number of items: bail enforcement and bail debt collection, dangerous driving, roadside powers and license suspensions, higher penalties for individuals who harm law enforcement animals, and the Joe McDonald Survivor Scholarship. So right now that scholarship provides funding for families, children of officers who are killed in the line of duty. It provides funding to support their education when the officer is killed. Some of the advocating and support, I was there in support of that bill. One of the things that I had asked the government to consider was to include police professionals and specifically our communications dispatch and call takers, to include them explicitly within the proposed legislative changes, as well as to include officers who die because of the line of duty, suicide. That happened this week. Next week, I'll be in Ottawa speaking to the Standing Committee for Justice and Human Rights with respect to Bill C-16. That's another large bill that is being considered in government. And then I wanted to highlight to the board some great police work from our major crimes personnel. On May 12th, 2023, an adult female in her 40s, she had died by way of overdose. And our officers responded to that call, and our major crime team ultimately took over that investigation beyond just an investigation that involved a drug overdose. What they did was they worked backwards, identified the actual drug trafficker that provided those the drugs that caused her death, and recently the case was heard in court, and it's London's first manslaughter conviction that we have. So Very, very good work from our major crime investigators. Jessica Birch, she's the detective that led that investigation. So wanted to share with the board some really great work by the overall team. And then lastly, last month, March 31st, Sergeant Anise 14 Cousins from the Sûreté du Quebec. She was killed in the line of duty 300 kilometers north of Quebec City. So funeral arrangements have been going back and forth. It's changed a number of times. The most recent information that we have is that the funeral will now take place on Wednesday, April 29th in Montreal. So sharing with the board for your awareness, that is in a line of duty death. We are looking at a contingent from London to pay our respects and support her family and her law enforcement partners. And certainly board is